Thanks so much for joining us online as we're continuing our conversation here with three Metro superintendents, Dr. Josh Delich from Edmond, Dr. Cecilia Robinson Woods from Millwood, and Dr. Rick Cobb from Mid-Del. Thanks for being here, all three of you. I was doing some math before we were talking. My daughter, as I told you, she's in the 4th grade. And I said, oh my goodness, that means in 5 years she's going to be in high school, which scared me to death. For all the reasons. But I think about, where is Oklahoma education going to be in 5 years? When my daughter gets to Santa Fe High School, right? Or if she's going to still be on that path, where should Oklahoma education be? What do you think, Dr. Cobb?
I got to be honest, I'm actually hopeful. I'm actually hopeful that in 5 years we're going to have turned the tide around. We can't just stop the bleeding in terms of the teacher shortage, but I think that we will have turned the tide around. I think the legislature has done some things in the last few years to fund programs, scholarships for students going into teacher prep, and that's really good. Everything that we do moving forward, though, is a choice. Are we going to make demands without funding them? Are we going to look for short gains instead of playing the long game? If the legislature, if it comes down to the people we elect. If the people we elect can look at the long game, if they're looking at where we're going to be in 5 years instead of where we're going to be before my next election, I think that we can make some real strides in this state.
I mean, because that's a problem with all things that involve political offices, is that people want to do things that then somebody else gets into the office and they change everything. Right. We see it in Washington, and we can see it at a state level as well. And so that is interesting. What are some, for example, literacy? I was talking to Superintendent Fields about his goal for literacy. He says, they're really optimistic about trying to follow the model that Mississippi used, the Mississippi Miracle, he called it. He said, but that was a 10, 12, 15-year thing of real investment.
Absolutely.
I mean, when it comes to literacy, what is it going to take to get Oklahoma kids on a better path forward? Either one of you, please.
I think one is, from a district standpoint, what are we intentionally doing to align with the state in terms of literacy initiatives? How are we creating systems and mechanisms that are really tight to really not just ELA class doing reading, not just your English 9 doing reading, but it actually cross-curricular, all levels, all departments, and a collaborative effort with all of our staff and our district working together to really push literacy, as it is a gateway to many opportunities, but it is also a nationwide epidemic of kids just not moving the needle in terms of their literacy. And doing so, I think we really have a great future here in Oklahoma, because we have a focus at the state level in the superintendent and that agency that is really focused in on a key area, which is, what are we going to do specifically about driving literacy, and how are we going to bring greater gains to our students that we serve?
Dr. Robinson Woods, what do you think is the biggest driver of literacy problems and a lack thereof?
So interesting to think about
because
that.
Because kids get behind, and then it's tough to catch up?
I'm so glad you said they get behind. They don't they start. So what research tells us is that a child's biggest learning space is in between the ages of 1 and 5. After 5, you're just barely chipping away at the surface. So in a state like Oklahoma, where we have poor maternal health, poor infant health, and we do a really good job, I will say, with universal pre-K with 4-year-olds, but there is a drastic need for early childhood care, high quality early childhood care, in lots of areas of the city that have nothing. And so what we're doing is we're sending children, and I tell this story, if you're a legislator and you've come to see me before, I take you to a 4-year-old classroom. If I have 20 4-year-olds, if 7 of them can write their name, we're having a good year.
Really?
And that's just writing their name. That's not a formal assessment. That's not a cognitive assessment. That is simply holding a pencil and your brain telling the pencil in your hand that has a sound. That doesn't mean they're at grade level. That just means they can write their name. The other 13, if they could hold a pencil, that's great. So they're not, in regards to, the school didn't make them behind. They showed up that way. And so what Mississippi did is Mississippi understood this is a systemic issue in our state. this isn't the schools we aren't adequately preparing children to go into. So if you look into the work of Mississippi, there's a huge early childhood component. There is a very large presence of training of teachers and of instructional coaches to make sure that reading and literacy is implemented to high fidelity.
How early are we talking? Like, where were they jumping in? 2,
Well,
3,
they were.
4?
It was about 3 when they
Okay.
started to track, but it was early childhood. But they did invest in early childhood and early childhood centers, and that's very, very important. And for early childhood centers in the state of Oklahoma, we've gone through a lot of changes, and the amount of 4- and 5-star child care centers in the highest poverty areas are almost non-existent. When Millwood launched, we have a Birth to 3 on campus. When we launched our Birth to 3 last February, we were the first 5-star daycare in 73111, one of the poorest, brownest, lowest health outcome communities in the state. And we were the first 5-star. And I can only take 28 kids, but I take 64-year-olds. And so that means maybe of those 28 kids, I'm going to get some kids who have a better start than the others. And we could focus on parents until we're blue in the face, but back to Dr. Delich's comment, we can only focus on what we can control. All I can do is take those 4-year-olds that come in and try to get them there. So when you have a system that weaponizes state report cards, that say, hey, this school is this and this school is this, versus this is who they service, right? And based on who they service, this is what it looks like. Because if you don't see where our kids start from, and then you just start judging us in 3rd grade, it's really not a fair advantage, right? It's rough. And then with that, you set kids and families up for failure. You basically tell them that they can't do anything. You've told them that it's too late. And that's what we do in the state. I don't believe knowingly, and I don't believe willingly.
But at that point, obviously, somebody comes in behind. There needs to be intervention, right?
100%.
Are the what sort of intervention programs is there right now in Mid-Del for kids that start behind?
I'm going to say poorly state funded ones, but go ahead.
Sure. It's, if we have Title I funds, if we have bond funds for technology, there's some good programs there. We have I can't even count the number of interventions that we have, and a lot of them through our special ed programs as well. And we find some things that work. We do try to create that partnership with the parents. My belief is that most parents are doing the absolute best job they know how to do as parents, and we try to do the absolute best job that we know how to do as teachers and as educators in our systems. As Dr. Robinson Woods said, it comes down to what we're willing to fund, what we're willing to invest in. Are we willing to invest in lower class sizes, in these wraparound supports, in high dosage tutoring, in instructional coaches, reading coaches at the early childhood level, and then knowing that we have a lot of students who have gotten older and remain behind, are we willing to invest in continuing education for teachers in 4th and 5th grade into middle school? Because I was a high school English teacher. If I had a student who didn't know how to read, I wouldn't have known how to teach them those basic skills.
What do you even do at that point? Right?
I can't get them to Hemingway if they don't have that foundation. And that's not on the teachers they had, it's not on their parents, it's just on the fact that those gaps stack up over time. And just like skills scaffold as we teach students, so do the struggles that students have in their aversion to school. And sometimes their coping mechanisms for faking their way through what they're expected to know. And so we have to play that long game with the early childhood piece, but we also have to make decisions about what we're willing to invest in to help our students that are a little bit older.
Sure.
And I hear a lot about the investment. I think that's one of the things that is really important from a legislative standpoint. It takes extensive amount of funding to support the initiatives, the supports that all of my colleagues are mentioning. It's really saying, Oklahoma legislature, are we ready to double down on really saying, if we are going to help transform the lives of our future leaders, we really need to put in the funds that it's going to take to support these type of direct, expensive, yet very meaningful and results-based programming. And that is one of the things that not only just in Oklahoma, but nationwide, with birth rates dropping, enrollments dropping, it is impacting districts across the country. Yet we're still seeing a rise in behavioral and cost of education. How are we as a state going to level that out and double down to really produce the results that we're talking about that actually come to fruition for our students in the future?
And I want to touch on also, when we talk about funding for programs in schools, people's generally, their thought is right to teacher pay, right? I'm not necessarily just talking about teacher pay. I definitely want teachers to make a livable wage. I definitely want them to be able to take care of their families. But teaching is one of the only professions where you are expected to train on your own time. Like, you know, the science of reading, for example, it probably takes upwards of 6 to 16 hours a month over the course of 6 months to go through that training and do it well. Now, the state will offer a stipend, you know, once you complete it, but teachers are expected to do that on their own time. Right now, for example, in my elementary school, we don't have enough dollars to support the number of specials that would be needed to give teachers planning time and time for a professional learning community.
Right.
We just don't have it. And so when we say funding, I'm not necessarily just saying, you know, we need to pay teachers more. We're talking about all of the collective dollars that are put into education to account for that. But it really makes no sense that teachers are expected to get better on their own time.
That's an interesting point you bring up. I'm going to leave it at that with the hope that you all come back and we can catch up and see how things are going. But I really appreciate what you're doing for Oklahoma kids, and I appreciate your time here today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.